This is Clint Eastwood in the 1960s. He was the face of the classic Western hero, riding horses, carrying that unmistakable screen presence, defining what toughness looked like on film. If you take that version of him and imagine him in his 90s, you'd probably picture something very different. You'd assume he stopped working decades ago, that his day starts slow, checking blood pressure, taking a handful of pills, moving carefully. Maybe a short walk if the knees allow it. Afternoons in a chair with the TV on, news, old films, drifting in and out of sleep, life shrinking down to routine and comfort. That's what most people would expect. But that's not what happened. Clint Eastwood is in his 90s and still working, directing films, making decisions on set, staying mentally sharp, handling long shooting days, and yes, still riding horses, and that's not normal. Most people begin to decline much earlier, physically, mentally, or both. So the question isn't admiration, it's explanation. What exactly is he doing differently? Because this kind of longevity doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from how someone lives every single day for decades. And if you break that down, it starts with something simple.
Where most people slip: food.
There's a moment where he was asked if he snacks on nachos or chicken wings, and his response was simple: none of that. That pretty much sums up how Clint approaches food. He has always been consistent with it. Nothing extreme, mostly clean, balanced meals, controlled portions, the kind of diet people know they should follow but don't stick to. His meals revolve around what actually supports the body. Lean proteins like salmon and chicken, things that help maintain muscle and keep energy stable. Alongside that, a steady intake of vegetables. Leafy greens like spinach and kale, vegetables like broccoli and asparagus. The kind of food people associate with discipline more than indulgence. He doesn't treat food as entertainment. He treats it as fuel. Fruits are part of the routine too. Blueberries, grapes, bananas, mainly for their antioxidant value. The idea is straightforward: reduce internal damage, support recovery, and keep the system functioning cleanly over time. He's also careful with what he avoids: refined carbs, sugary desserts, processed food. Those don't really have a place in his daily routine. Not out of restriction, but out of choice. Even drinks are kept simple, mostly water, occasional alcohol, but without excess. And yet it's not rigid. He's known for balance, sticking to clean habits most of the time without turning it into restriction. Over time, this kind of eating reduces strain on the body, lower inflammation, better metabolic stability, fewer extremes. But diet alone doesn't explain it.
He never stopped moving.
He's never approached fitness like a phase or a short-term goal. It's always been part of his life. Even in his 90s, he stays physically active, not by chasing heavy lifts or pushing extremes, but by focusing on movements that keep the body working well. When he does train with weights, the focus is on form and control rather than lifting heavy. A lot of his activity also happens outside the gym.
He's still riding horses.
Not as a symbolic throwback, but as something he actually does. Getting on, balancing, controlling the animal, staying steady through movement. That takes coordination, core strength, and awareness. Even something like golf fits into that pattern. He's played regularly for decades and even built his own course at Tehama in California. That tells you it's not just a hobby, it's something he has kept in his life consistently. A round of golf means hours on your feet, walking the course, maintaining posture through repeated swings, staying coordinated. Walking shows up the same way, not as a fitness goal, but as part of how he moves through the day. He's known for keeping things simple, walking instead of overcomplicating exercise, staying mobile on set, not relying on intense routines. Over time, that kind of steady movement does more for joint health, circulation, and endurance than short bursts of high effort followed by inactivity.
still making movies at 90.
He never stepped away. Having a reason to wake up and solve problems every day keeps the brain active. When that disappears, decline often starts quietly and then accelerates. Look at the kind of work he was doing in his 80s and 90s. American Sniper wasn't a slow, reflective project. It was a large-scale production with tight schedules, multiple locations, and high emotional intensity. He directed it at 84, finishing it on a compressed timeline that most younger directors would find demanding. Then came Sully, recreating an emergency plane landing, coordinating water sequences, managing technical accuracy. It required precision, long hours on set, and constant decision-making under pressure. In his late 80s, he directed The Mule, where he was not just behind the camera, but also the lead actor. That means memorizing lines, performing scenes, and directing simultaneously. Different kind of strain, mental and physical at the same time. And even into his 90s with Cry Macho, he was still working on location, handling outdoor shoots, and yes, riding horses as part of the film. You don't sustain that kind of life without learning how to manage stress.
Calm under pressure.
He's known to be calm and measured, and that's not accidental. Since the 1970s, Clint Eastwood has practiced transcendental meditation, often twice a day, even during demanding film schedules. That contrast is striking. On screen, he played some of the most hardened, violent characters in cinema. Off-screen, he was sitting quietly, resetting his mind, reducing stress before going back to work. Transcendental meditation is a simple practice, sitting still, using a repeated sound or mantra to settle the mind. The goal isn't focus in the usual sense, but a kind of relaxed awareness where mental noise drops and the body gets deep rest. And over time, that has real effects. Lower stress levels, better sleep, more stable energy, clearer thinking under pressure. Most people don't decline because of one big event. They decline from accumulated stress. Eastwood avoided that. He didn't just stay active. He kept his system under control, and that compounds. But none of this works if it's occasional.
No off days.
This only works because he's done it for decades. The meditation, the food, the movement, the work. These aren't things he does when he feels like it. They're built into how he lives. That's why they compound. And that's what most people underestimate. Longevity doesn't come from big changes. It comes from doing simple things consistently for a long time. Most people already know what to do. They just don't do it long enough. Clint Eastwood is what it looks like when someone does. If you found this useful, subscribe to Vital Beyond Years. We break down what actually works so you can apply it and stay sharp for longer. See you in the next episode.